when you're reviewing your budget, you're going to be understanding a few factors. You need to understand, when you're reviewing your budget, you want to look at, every few months. I say look at it every 2 to 3 months, sometimes every month, depending on how many moving parts you have or what kind of moving parts you have. You want to understand when you're looking at your products and services, do you have the right supplier? Are you maximizing what your gross profit is, which is your gross revenue minus your cost of goods sold. So the supplier, for if you're in the inventory based business, is important to always be looking at your products. Are you paying the right amount for it, or do you need to look for new suppliers? What is the cost there? You could analyze costs. You want to make sure that you understand if there's unexpected costs. You want to review areas where you can cut costs, because that's one of the things I see a lot in my service-based businesses. They have subscriptions or things that they're paying monthly, and they don't even know what it is, if they're making any profits from that. Making sure that they're looking at their marketing budget, especially. I mean, if you have a marketing expense for a newspaper or something like that, marketing has changed so much that I'm learning in the past few years, that you want to make sure that you are looking at that and understanding if this cost or this expense you're getting what you thought you should be getting out of it. So digging deeper into your budget also helps you to just think about the things that you're paying for. I'm paying this much for rent. I'm paying this much for mortgage. I'm paying this much for utilities. You want to make sure that you understand what you're paying. You want to make sure that you understand when things go up, because with the rate of inflation today, there are so many things that have gone up. So looking at your budget and comparing your budget, you understand that your rent did go up. You might not notice, because it might be an automatic thing that's happening in your account, or your accountant or your bookkeeper is paying all these bills. So you need to look at the overall picture and then dig deeper if you see some variances within your budget. Why is this different? Did my rent go up? Did my suppliers go up? Things like that you need to look at. So you want to make sure that you understand your variances, because you're looking at these things. You also want to make sure that when you are budgeting, that you do budget for the rise of things. When you're looking at your numbers and when you're looking at your budget, then you'll understand, my rent has gone up from last year, because this is what I paid last year. A lot of budgets, most budgets are created from your prior year actual numbers. That's the way I like to create a budget. If it's a startup company, then you look at your industry standards. For companies that are existing, it's even more easier to create a budget. You want to make sure that you look at your prior year costs. So that it's important that you have good bookkeeping that we talked about last week. So if those numbers are accurate, it's easy to budget for the new year, and you're looking at those costs in order to know what you're going to be paying in the next year for. So, you're looking at that. So you understand, if the rise in costs and things like that. So, again, let's review, if you're starting out in your business and you don't know what's happening, you want to make sure that you do your homework and look in your industry standards on how to budget for your industry and what the costs are that comes about within your industry. Talk to your accountant, talk to your financial advisor, talk to your tax advisor and your bookkeeper about getting that going. So you want to make sure, I usually start with a budget, usually at least, 3 to 4 months before the end of the year. You want to start getting a outline of your budget going, and it's real easy to start an outline if you're doing historical numbers. If you're looking at last year, you start off your budget. Then you might have plans. You might have plans to expand and things like that. You can do a budget on a spreadsheet. Most of my budgets are done on spreadsheets. You have your information. You do your estimated dollars. You do your actual numbers, you can do estimated dollars, and then your new numbers. So that's how I usually do my budgets. I have what my last year's information is, what my last year's actual numbers are, then my new estimated numbers. That's happening, and then I have the other line that I compare my actual numbers for the current year that's happening. That's how I look at a budget, and it's usually in 3 columns. So you want to understand what happened last year, what you budgeted for this year. Maybe you have some more stuff that you budgeted in for this year, and then are you on point with that budget? So you also want to factor in some slacks. You want to remember that although you may have estimates, all business generate certain rates of revenue going forward. You have certain expenses that are fixed costs that can be controlled, but there's also estimate of things that are not set in stone. Things that will factor in, that you have some leeway, some estimation in there that you can, you have, depending on whether you want to expand or you're having a new employee or things like that. You have those slack part. Those things are things that are going to be varying from budget to budget, because if you're having a new employee, you need to factor in that information in there. You also want to look at cutting costs. So one of the things that you want to look at is when you always want to tighten in your budget. You want to make sure that your crucial bills are paid. You want to understand, analyze your marketing and advertising. You want to make sure that, if you have equipment and fixed assets, is there an opportunity to capitalize some of that? Are you going to be taking accelerated depreciation on that? So you understand what's happening there. Again, I'm going to talk about reviewing your business budget periodically. You want to be reviewing your finances. There's no use making a budget and going through all that work if you're not looking at your number picture. You paint the picture, you still got to look at it. You got to analyze it. That is the part where it comes in to help you. So it does not make any sense for you to do all the work of putting this together and then you're not analyzing it. Analyze the crap out of that. So that's where it's going to help you. That's where you're going to see your differences. That's where you're going to understand. And trust me, when you start looking at that, light bulbs start going off in your head. I can tell you, I've seen it in my clients. When I go over what their numbers are and where they're at, they're like, oh. And they were very hesitant about doing it with me in the first place. But once I start working on it, they realize, I guarantee you, every time I go over, numbers with my clients, whether it's their budget or their actual numbers compared to the year before, and we analyze these numbers and we check on what they're spending here, we dig deep into it. Most of my clients save between $1,000 to $2,000 a month, because there's things that they can cut costs on, and they have not thought about it. And I know everybody's wonderful at their business and they're great at it, and they think they have all their numbers in their head. I'm an accountant. I'm a CPA. I've been doing this for almost 3 decades. And I can tell you, I have my budget. I have my analyzation. I look at all these things, and I need to look at my number picture to understand what's happening. Because I can look at 1 number, 2 number, 10 numbers, 100 numbers, but not unless I have my whole picture painted, am I able to analyze it properly and maximize on all the work that I've done. So I'm telling you, I'm a numbers person, but I do not have all the numbers in my head. I need these things to be able to understand my business and analyze what's happening in terms of maximizing my profitability, growing, getting rid of cutting costs where I need to, getting rid of waste, getting rid of things that I'm not using anymore, reanalyze if things are working for me, and if they're not working for me, am I spending my money in the wrong places? So, you want to maximize where you're spending your money on. So the bottom line is, budgeting is an easy thing, in my opinion. It's an essential process of business owners to use to forecast and then match their current expense to future revenues and expenses. The goal is to make sure that there's enough money available to keep your business up and running, to grow your business, to complete and ensure a solid emergency fund, and to move towards in the future and maximize the profitability of what you're doing, tightening everything so there's less waste. So this is the end of this budgeting for business owners, making sure that you're getting rid of the bad money habit of not looking at your numbers. Make sure you paint your number picture.